Camera. Roll the credits. Here we are on Artist to Art, a photographer's portrait. Are we going to rewind? Okay. There we go. Welcome, 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 welcome. This one is a very special one. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for today, for this moment that's happening right now with all of you wonderful people. We are here, we're alive, we're breathing. What more could I ask for? What more could I wish for? What more could I hope for than to be here with you? Than to be here with you, listening to the wonderful photographers, being curious about what they have to say. That's really behind this whole portrait of a photographer, is hearing what they have to say. And we're just going to bring on Dora here, and that's what we're doing. We're and be present with each other. So be present with us. Hey! There we go. I brought you on.
All right, it worked.
It worked. It worked.
Exciting.
Why don't you introduce yourself? I like to allow you to introduce yourself.
Okay.
I'm here to listen to you.
Thanks. My name is Dora Somosi, and this is my first Instagram Live, so thank you for my inaugural time on this. I've definitely watched a couple, so I'm ready. I'm excited to talk about the work, and I'm really appreciative of what you're doing for photographers and these interviews. It's great. It's great to have an opportunity to talk about process and the pandemic and how it's affected all of us.
Yeah. How have you been doing with the pandemic? Where are you, and how has it affected you?
Uh-oh, I think you're frozen. Oh, there you are.
Oh, there I am. Here I am.
So, I have two kids. I have two daughters, and they ended school in March, and we basically started quarantining and really being isolated and by ourselves. From then, we are in upstate New York in Old Chatham, and we aren't new to up here, and we aren't new to having some issues to overcome. And we're pretty used to being a unit, the four of us. So it was actually a really welcome opportunity to shut a lot of things out and a lot of unnecessary noise. I think now looking back on it, we all learned so much. I mean, I know we're still in it. I'm going to be probably going up and down a roller coaster of craziness and being pretty angry once my kids aren't back to school in person. Um, but all of us have just learned a tremendous amount. My husband had to work from home on a consistent basis and what it means not to have to commute to an office. My kids, who are pretty impressionable ages with social dynamics, like being able to tune that stuff out, has been tremendous. We went on a ton of hikes. We experienced springtime up here, which we'd never done. We really slowed down. We watched the birds a lot. We watched the flowers come up and the trees blossom. And it sounds so cheesy, but it was transformative for us to just be in love with where we are and our environment. And 5 years ago, I left a full-time job that was pretty great because we were going through something with some health-related stuff that was pretty heavy. And at that point, also, I feel like I turned to nature as the solve. And again, we did that, and it got us through. And also, I mean, not through yet, but it's getting us through. There was just a lot of joys and silver linings for us. And for me, photographically, it's definitely been transformative I'm the kind of person that really likes to say yes to almost everything. I have a lot of friends that love the arts, and I have a lot of opportunities to see shows and go out, which I love. And I don't say no to those things, but I didn't have any chance. There was no distraction. And this idea of not having distraction and to be able to focus on the work and what's important was great. I had never used Instagram to this extent. I've never connected on social media to this extent. I've met a lot of people um, through Instagram, through Zoom workshops I took. I'm actually taking my first actual in-person workshop next week, which is, I know, it's just me and a couple that I found up here that teach this particular kind of process I'm interested in. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's going to be wearing a mask the entire day and doing it outside, but um, I don't know. I'm rambling. I told you not to let me ramble, but
No, I like it. I'm just like, I'm just enjoying it. It's just like a flood of amazingness just washing over me. I'm just, I enjoy, like for me, I mean, it's a conversation, so feel free to, bounce back and forth where you're not, you're not on the spot at all. Like this is it's an open dialogue. I'm, so, so just like for me, it also like that nature and watching the plants grow. And so I'm really intrigued by what were things that you noticed, because like I was noticing certain things, but um what were things that you noticed in this time through nature?
there are so many things. Well, first of all, I had this like ritual where I'd open my door every morning. We have like this small cabin here, and I opened my door every morning, and from exactly where I stood, I did it in the morning and actually at sunset. I would take a picture of the sky. So I've always taken pictures of the sky and clouds, but I hadn't done it that formulaically and that methodically. And I was counting our days, and I felt like those sky pictures were kind of like these X's on the days. And after I did so many, I just could not believe how long we've been up here. So that was one thing that we were really spending time with the sky. We also we discovered like all these what are they called? Oh no, I'm forgetting. There are all kinds of weeds that are growing wild around here, and so we were trying to figure out what each one was. We have certain ferns that grew, and like which flowers were coming up at which times. I've always photographed flowers, so there was a lot of wildflower photographing that was happening. There were a lot of picking of flowers and making crowns. We tie-dyed with flowers one day. So really, there wasn't anything we didn't notice. We also noticed that sadly, a lot of birds flew into our windows and died. That was horrible. And then we just learned about like the robin was territorial with this reflection on our windows and would keep crashing into our window. Um, the sunsets here are incredible. So we just really enjoyed that. And we tried to find a lot of the nature walks around here. We did a lot of nature walks. And the camera, in a way, was something that my girls, especially as my husband was working most of the time, and my camera was kind of helpful to say to the kids, okay, we're going out. This is mommy's work. Let's go. And I'm going to bring my camera. We're going to find something cool. And I would research what the different nature walks were. And we really were trying to find and do as many as we could around us. And yeah, there's a lot of slow down time. It was just real slow. And that was okay. We cooked a bunch like everybody else. And we obsessed over just different recipes. I didn't bake bread like everybody else. Um,
What were you cooking?
um, my daughter loves chicken, so I feel like I've made every version of chicken. I actually love Alison Roman, and I loved every recipe of chicken, especially. I feel like she's like a chicken expert and dining in and nothing fancy. And I know that she's been through a lot the second half of pandemic and everybody watching comments from her, but I have to say I really enjoy her cooking, and let's take politics out of that particular one for me. So a lot of chickens happening up here, and then there are a lot of local farms up here. So while we would go by the farms and see the baby animals being born, it's just not our usual lifestyle, and that was pretty great. And the kids would have Zoom school till about 2, and then we'd have this whole afternoon free of discovery.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that discovery. I also want to say Henrietta's on here from in near London, and she follows my work a lot, and so she said ramble on. So feel free,
Thank
feel free. Super supporters get their get their voice heard. So be a super supporter. Come on here and make some comments.
you.
I'll listen. Anybody else who makes comments or has questions, feel free. I'll try to get to them. Um, that's just how it rolls. Let's check out some work.
Okay, sounds great.
Let's see here. I have to like go and check this out and
Ooh, extreme close up.
extreme close up. This is how.
I like it. I like it. So, actually, I have that picture here. So it's really a circle format.
Oh yeah, you can show it if you feel like showing it in your screen. If you have it there.
Um, and this is I actually wanted to show a couple of earlier pictures that were not from the pandemic. So my earlier work, this was in a show called Altered Landscapes. And I had said a little bit before that I use nature for therapeutic power. And we 5 years ago, when my daughter was going through something, we would go on all these hikes, and I just wanted her to feel that there was so much bigger, so many things bigger than us, so many things bigger than the things that we were going through. And so I would take pictures on these hikes and nature walks. And then I feel sometimes that photography for me personally, things as they aren't enough. And sometimes I feel like I imprint my emotional state onto them in some form. I'm always working that piece out, and I feel like I'm always growing and trying things in that emotional realm. And so I made all these images into circles. I made them into the tondo. I have an art history background. And I have an BA in art history and studio practice. And the tondo is just considered this religious iconography, this something that was often used for in Renaissance paintings to lift things up, to give them a reverence. And so with the circle, I felt like I was trying to do that to nature. I was trying to write like a love letter to nature, sorry. And so that's why I made these circle images. And then I also did a lot of these aging flowers in the same way.
This is the next series.
That's okay.
No.
And I did these aging flowers right after the death of my father-in-law, who we were all really close to. And my husband had bought this bouquet of flowers for me for my birthday that was exceptional. And he died right around my birthday. And I had forgotten about these flowers, and I just left them on a windowsill. We'd gone to where they live and to the funeral and all the arrangements, and I still forgot about the flowers. And I came back, and they just had died so beautifully. They just had become even more beautiful in their death. And so I photographed that bouquet, and then I kept photographing bouquets that were important to me, and then I also made them into this circle. And it's funny, like it doesn't always work. Often it doesn't work, these flower arrangements. They have to have an emotional charge in my life. They have to have some type of relevance. But I dry flowers all the time. I just love it. And I love working with the flowers. So that's been a practice of mine for some time, just trying to find the beauty in life and trying to find the beauty in death.
That's so beautiful. And then kind of this meaningfulness in the circle and being able to like find that eye between the two. Do you find it kind of like overlays itself on each other, or like is it kind of like side by side, or how do you envision that inside of yourself connecting?
Well, I'm not sure. Uh, can you ask me that again?
Yeah, sure. I guess I just like thought about this, like it seems like this kind of like life and death, and then a reverence to this kind of like concept of it, and like the nature, and it just seems like, how do you kind of view that? Is it kind of like in front of each other, beside each other, like on a timeline, or is it like um overlapping? I guess I was talking to Rolf earlier, and he was talking about how he, how he goes to these bicycles through these landscapes and starts to see history overlay on itself.
Mm.
And I guess I was just wondering like how that connection is for you between but because there's like two states, it seems.
Hmm.
Is that am I looking at it in the way that you
Yeah,
tend to look at it, or is it, I don't know.
definitely. I'm not totally sure how to answer that question, but I will pivot a little and just
Yeah,
say
pivot. Go
that
for it. Answer however you like.
um, so when I left, I was a director of photography for about 15 years in magazines. And before that, I was an agent for photographers at Magnum, which is like the best I think still the best photojournalist agency. And I really identified who I was through work. I identified myself as a working female, as a strong woman in an industry. And when I left, I didn't fall apart. I just didn't know who I was anymore without this definition of work and this definition of like maybe not power, but like having some influence in the creative world. And so maybe this like sacred geometry of the circle and beyond just the art historical motif of it, maybe it was just that I wanted to find back my way to have equilibrium and sanity by myself without needing this other status and title to give me that. So it's all been really a journey, and I feel like the circle it gives me. I wear a lot of circles. I like a lot of. I wear old stones that are relevant to me that are circles. I keep them close to me. I think it's just like giving me good juju. And I feel like I'm constantly trying to find it in my work, and it's really just about that journey for me with photography and becoming I guess re-becoming a photographer, because it's really what I had originally planned to do but got sidetracked because I couldn't figure out how to make a living doing it. Being a assistant for photographers right out of the school and a PA on film sets, I just felt like I couldn't carry the equipment, and it was like all that equipment was like such a man's world. And I decided to go more into the business side, and it was still super creative. Like so lucky to have a profession that was creative and business and paid well. But and then I was like, I want to finally do what I always wanted to do. I want to try, and I want to devote all my free time that's not with my friends and family to creating, because it brings me such happiness, and it really allows me to go through these emotional states that I naturally feel pretty intensely as a person.
Wow, that's quite a journey you've been on there to like to find yourself out of the business world and onto finding something inside of yourself, it sounds like. And how do you find they have you had them relate in some way yet, or is this like something that you're looking for
You mean
still?
my background?
Hmm?
You mean my background? Has it?
Yeah. Has it started to relate to your work now? Have you been able to like put your work in that context, or is it kind of like whole other context?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. No, it's a great question. And I find I all along I've been doing freelance work in that context. It's just not as enthusiastic to talk about, but um, really some very exciting and great projects. As a co-curator on projects, I also have curated for art benefits and small magazines, and I helped launch a couple of small magazines. All that's been really rewarding. I'm actually currently in a doing something that I feel like is the closest to what I want to do and still be on the business side, which is to help people buy art for their homes that is more accessible, maybe before it's at the gallery level. So that's, I love it. I love it. And part of this downtime and quiet time and meeting people and seeing work on Instagram has really helped me to see and meet a lot of these more I don't want to say emerging artists because like they maybe they've been doing it for a long time, but a certain what do you call it? What do you call it when someone is in gallery represented but they're not? I don't know what to call it. Artists who are accessible financially to purchase, and you feel that when you buy the work, you're really contributing to somebody's passion. You feel this like direct. There's no middle person. There's just you're really helping somebody stay an artist, and you're helping them buy them more supplies and buy them time to do what they want to do. So I finally, I feel like that's something I've had a couple of projects doing it, not that many, but a few, and I'd love to do more of that. It's great.
Wow. So what do you need in order to do that? Like, what are you looking for? Who would you like to connect with? It? They might be watching right now. They might be watching later. Like, who would you love to connect with in order to do more of that?
So, I know a lot of photographers and I know a lot about photography, so I feel like I have a handle on some of that. Um, I'm obsessed with textile artists. There's this woman whose name is going to escape me, and I'm super bummed about that. But she
You can
has
post later. That's okay.
has collected vintage book jackets, and she has basically making these like small, intricate Rothko style artworks with them. I'm really into that kind of niche thing. Um, I always love cameraless photography, cyanotypes, and how people push that. I myself am now really going towards in my own work, examining the filmic process itself and breaking it down and really having a conversation with painting and also bringing textiles into my work. I paint over textiles. I've been giving a lot of pandemic haircuts. I've given like 10. I'm kind of obsessed with giving haircuts. I go anywhere I go with my scissors in case somebody wants a pandemic haircut. But I realized that I love the scissor. And so I started making these collages and then painting over them and incorporating photography. And then next week, this like workshop that I was telling you about is like learning how to pour wax over your photography. I want to get rid a little bit of the glass sometimes. I mean, the glass makes a lot of sense um, for photography, for sure, for preservation. And I'm also interested in having a really direct relationship. I've had like such a tactile experience um, with photography. Like I'm trying to get it to be more sensory. Um, and so I'm just using all kinds of new tools, and I love it.
Yeah, that like I feel that sensory. A few people have followed me over from my art, from my like painting page, and it's been interesting, like that kind of journey of like what is it taking the photograph and then that sensory, changing up the sensory elements and being on the I've been on the journey of like incorporating a chef into the mix and where that connects with painting and then now bring it back to the photo. So I'm like really fascinated. Have you worked on any collaboratives recently that or would like to? Because you're talking about like selling the work, like kind of being an agent.
Mm.
Um, and then you're talking about like the workshop side. Have you ever worked with any sort of other artists to then create together?
I haven't, but that'd be amazing. I have the couple of magazines that were smaller after I worked at GQ that I worked on. Were collaborative in that way. I mean, I feel like magazine work is super collaborative, and so you have that. And there've been a couple of small magazines that I've helped put together, and working on shows is collaborative. But I haven't actually made any art with anyone directly. I haven't had like a conversation. I really enjoyed I listened in on the ICP talk that David Campany did early on at ICP, and he talked about like this conversation on Instagram that people are having by putting up a picture and a response. And the give and the take is a really good example. Audrey Landreth does such a good job with that type of conversation on Instagram. I haven't personally. It's also been I have so much conversation with my kids in terms of like creating art with them. We paint a lot together, we make cyanotypes and done all kinds of projects. So I haven't. It's not that I wouldn't want to though.
Cool. No, I'm just, I thought I'd throw it out there. Just
Yeah. No, I don't know.
let's check out more of your work here. We can go
Good.
through. You've got so much. I love
Um,
it.
Hard because my images are actually on the right. This was a show that I was in, but those are
Oh, well, let's
that's okay. Those artists are all amazing. And I was very pleased to be in a show with them. So those were my aging flowers that were shown together as four together, which was lovely. You can see them on my website.
yeah. So go follow.
Yeah,
If you're not following me, follow me. If you're not following Dora, go follow Dora. In the upper
great.
left-hand corner of the screen, just go up there and follow. And if you're watching later, then it's in the comments.
Cool. Thanks.
Perfect.
Oh, here we go. So this is an example of one of my earlier aging flowers series. And
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's probably some new people who just signed on here. So why don't you give a little brief, like what's going on?
um, so a lot of the earlier work was part of this show called Altered Landscapes, and it speaks to my own altered state as well as the way I alter images in post-production. And um, the circle specifically here is about like the reverential state that I feel towards nature and its power uh, personally to have saved me through some difficult things and the constant equilibrium that it offers me for my psyche and my heart and my practice.
Hmm.
Um, this is, I do a lot of seascapes. I do a lot of horizon images. I'm really inspired by Sugimoto, Rothko, who I mentioned earlier too. I'm really interested in this horizon line and something about looking at the ocean and it's this peacefulness. And now more than ever with the pandemic, not only I'm making new pictures in this vein, but I'm also looking back on my old pictures and I just find a complete peace of mind looking at them. And I just printed two of these. I'm almost out of the series at 40 by 50. And they're just a pleasure to look at. And I wake up early. I love the sunset. I love looking at the light and how the light plays. I also tend to alter it with one, usually it's one thing. Sometimes it's invisible. Sometimes it's a bit more heavy handed where I take something away or I'm altering something to the point where you think something is off, but you don't know exactly what it is. And part of that be a little bit of a wake up call or warning sign of how we treat this beauty and this landscape that gives us so much, but we take it for granted. And so it's this sort of warning sign that I try and impose on the images.
Wow. A warning for us to like take care of the nature and the landscape.
That's right.
Is that what?
Exactly. Exactly. And so you can appreciate them. And the bottom one was in a show at Neuhaus. They both were actually that Olivia Song was the curator of. And this was a similar idea. The top one isn't altered tremendously at all, actually. It's just that it's a really an early sunrise. But the bottom one, the sky is completely taken away. And
Wow. So you just like cut it out of there. You're just like done.
over it. Yeah. And that bottom one is taken in Mexico. And so it was right after Trump was elected. And his language was so disturbing to me about how he talked about people from Latin America and Mexico. And I felt this peacefulness, this beauty being there. But then I also felt, and I needed this, this in the emotional state that I was in at that time. I felt like I needed to impose something over my own images, and I felt sort of trapped. It's a little hard to explain exactly what I'm doing. I'm not, or it isn't that hard to explain. I'm better at writing about it. I'm having a hard time explaining it this minute. I don't know how you talk this long. I'm already like feeling like, wow, I've talked so much. So
No, no, you're great. You're
honest.
great. It's
Uh,
I'm fascinated by you and your work. That's why we're here.
um,
Yeah.
I
So, mhm.
where I was looking at the homes of Louis Barragan and looking at those colors and the ingenuity in his work. And then I was taking those colors and then imposing it into the landscape from Mexico City. So I do a lot of this, like I'm taking something from, the colors are coming from exactly that place. They're not just invented, and there's a rationale why that color or that removal is happening. And I'm doing that a lot now during the pandemic as well, where I'm removing, you see like reflections of things, but things are being removed.
Hmm, interesting. I'm working on reading a question here. Um, yeah, so Henrietta says that she loves your art take on photography.
Thank you.
So what Vivian says, what whenever I talk for more than I can't, the background is too distracting. But you all can read the comments, and if it's short, then I can actually do it. But I can't do long comments on here just because of the like visually. Yeah, I can't do it. Size of screen. So
So
it's
this is where again I'm really interested in painting with light. These are sometimes I paint and then I make transparent prints and then I re-photograph them to make light paintings. So that's what that is. And I'm really interested in this conversation about photography's limitations, people's assumptions about the limitations of photography. And I'm really interested in the conversation about photography as an art form and the painterliness that can happen in photography. And not just seeing things as they are, but willing things in your mind into an object.
wow. So you're putting it forward. You're not kind of not, you're kind of observing the world, and then you're also seeing what it could be,
Yeah,
what the world could be.
like I have a couple of things going on in the work, which I know is in some ways that people always tell you to do one thing, and you just become. I mean, I used to say this to photographers too, as an editor. If you present, if your voice and your vision is very clear in what you want to do, and you can present that, it's going to be easier for an editor to hire you. And the same probably for art purchasing or art exhibitions, photography exhibitions. If I'm not that person, unfortunately, any of my own advice. If you do one thing, I feel like I'm just so interested and excited by the new, and I just constantly go with it, and I can't help myself. I don't do one thing. It doesn't. I come back to things. I continue them as paths in my work, but I don't do one thing. And so and they lead to. I mean, it's part of my journey, and I still think the advice is true, sadly. And for other people, if they could follow it, if you can show that you do one thing really well and you keep doing it, and it interests you enough to do it really well, it's very positive for your career and your work. I just
That's in,
can't
mhm.
can't follow it myself.
Well, it's interesting what you say about, the single path versus maybe having a couple paths.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like you're not just like all over the place. You've picked kind of a couple paths, and they kind of like go like
Yeah.
this and interweave
This
and
light painting came from, first I was painting over just the skyline. And then somebody said to me, it was great. Someone was like, well, why don't you just paint? I was like, why don't I just paint? And then it wasn't enough just to paint. And so I wanted it to be a light painting, and I wanted it to be a photograph. And then I there'll be a time and a place when I want to do that again. I'm not doing that right now as much. So let's go on before we run out of time.
Yeah. Let's move. You tell me anytime you want me to switch.
Cool, cool. This image is also cropped, but it's fine. And the Atlantic just published this with really one of the most beautiful poems I've ever read. And when I read it, I was so haunted by how well it went with the image. I was so pleased, and it was just such a lovely moment to have that image published recently.
Wow. So how did the poem go with it first, or did they how did that process work with the Atlantic?
They saw the picture and then they asked to run it.
And then so they contacted you directly, and then they hired a poet to create
No,
something with it.
no, they had the poem first, and then they saw my work, and they were like, "This seems like a really nice fit with the poem." So they asked if they could run the image with their poem. So the poem was,
Interesting.
yeah.
Let's see. Brenda, I think, asks, what camera do you use, and do you ever shoot with your phone?
I never, yeah, I mean, I take pictures of like silly things with my phone all the time, but not for, I don't take any iPhone pictures for my practice. I used to shoot with Mamiya 645, then a Nikon, then a Canon Mark II, it's been a minute. And now I shoot with a Sony mirrorless camera, the A7R4, whatever it's called. Mirrorless camera. I'm obsessed with it. So I feel also sometimes that with my work, the happy accidents are what cause the things I'm most proud of. It's the limitations often of the camera, with mistakes. And from those mistakes, I work the mistakes out and I find something new. I find some way to resolve it that I like better than just having made a perfect picture.
Beautiful.
So, oh, this was what I was talking about before, but it's also cropped. This was like
It's
all the,
also cropped.
it's fine, whatever. I'm gonna stop saying that. I'm just so grateful for showing them, not like trying to make comments.
I know, I know. I guess it's like the size thing. And Instagram does what it wants, and there's no controlling it. Kind of. It's
So those were the pictures that I took during the pandemic. I was trying to take pictures at least once a day from the same vantage point inside my door with the door open, looking up.
wow. And then you're putting it together in Photoshop, or are you creating like a
Oh,
collage, like
that
physical?
collage is in Photoshop, but one day, one of the drawbacks, but maybe again, this goes back to mistakes lead to, or limitations lead to positive, like the limitations of the pandemic have led to positive things for my work. The other limitation I would say is I don't have a printer. I've always printed in other spaces. And I think that's where I picked up painting and needing to feel, and sewing and the combination of mixed media was because I can't print, so I don't have a physical form to work with. So, but one day when I do print again, or if I save enough money to buy one of those fancy printers, I still see printing these all individually and then having them mounted onto a giant board,
Hmm.
like huge.
Huge. How huge are we talking?
I don't know. Like 80 by 100. I don't know. Is
Nice.
that big? I don't even know. Like 6 feet by 8 feet? I don't know. Good question. I'm gonna work that out and get back to you.
Yeah. Would you, and how would you imagine that displayed? Like, would that be in a gallery? Would that be in someone's home? Like, because you were talking about the homes a lot, but like,
Sure.
what,
If someone have that in their home, call me. I don't know. It's just
if you wanted 80 by 100, give you a call.
totally dreaming. And um, I don't know. One day somewhere would be great, but if not, I like the idea of at some point I'd love to print out all the sky cloud pictures from the pandemic and see them. I'm sure I could find a space in my house somewhere.
That's always a thing, storage, right?
Yeah.
Can
Oh,
we skip by this because it's cropped?
skip it. So this is a little bit of just I threw together a collage of pictures of my kids. That center one is in the ICP concerned show that David Campany curated, which I know many of you are in as well, and it was just brilliant. Um, I think David Campany is going to do great things for that institution, and this is a really good example of what you do to bring people together and how to use social media. I was so impressed. I mean, it got me up and out a lot of times to be able to hashtag ICP concern, see other people and what they were posting. Heartbreaking images. I mean, mine is just like an inner moment with my dog and my daughter, but it was such a beautiful way to organize. Anyway, so one of the things I didn't do before the pandemic, I did take iPhone pictures a lot of my kids, but I never photographed my kids in a concentrated, slow down, good camera way. And I take now so many pictures of them, and they're just such fantastic subjects because I'm getting to document them growing. They're getting to see themselves the way I see them in this poetic, magical way. They're magic to me, and um, I'm so grateful that they sit for me. I'm so grateful they're patient. I'm so glad that they see the craziness that I see with the camera, um, and we've just had so many adventures with the camera and the two of us, and it's been good. Yeah,
Wow. So what I'm curious about this show. Like what really because you said what he did with social media, what he did with what he did and what was it that really excited you? Because you've been in all of these different worlds. Like
yeah.
what was it that excited you about this?
Because we were all so disconnected, the only way we could really, I mean, we could pick up the phone, sure, but the only way we could, and we're all reading the newspaper, I know that, but the way in a more, in a small community way, and especially in a photography community way, we could see how other photographers were seeing the world and so instantly. Um, I mean, I don't need to wax poetic about Instagram, but I just and that he organized it in the end. It wasn't just a hashtag to bring us together, but he went through all the pictures. Then he picked the pictures. Then he printed out the pictures, and now there's like 1,000 pictures hanging in ICP right now, and um, it's got to make all of us feel kind of good to be part of the conversation. And I see Daphne. That's how we met. That's exactly how we met. That's right. And I'm so grateful for that. I love seeing your pictures of your boys. Maybe my girls and your boys will meet one day. Um, I don't know. It meant a lot to end up being in the institution of ICP, to have our voices heard visually. It meant a lot.
Wow. That's that's really beautiful, and I think that's something that a lot of institutions can do is to find
Yeah.
ways for more voices to be
I
heard.
actually, we passed through it because it was
Yeah.
cropped.
Hmm.
The, Before I just had it in there because I thought it was funny.
Hmm.
In the Getty Museum also did a fantastic social media campaign where they asked people to do a pandemic picture where they mimic a or copy a image from their collection, but it was actually a woman, I want to say in the Netherlands, who started this concept, and people were creating just the most brilliant versions of famous paintings with household items. And so mine was my daughter. She's dressed as a Raphaelite painting and she's holding toilet paper. But I found we had so much fun with it. And that was another institution that I think really got it right. And it went viral because it was something so people needed a little fun. It was so heavy those early months. I know it's really heavy in a lot of places, obviously still, but for New York, it was so heavy early on, and it was just such a great reprieve from that heaviness.
Wow. Brenda asked, "What is ICP, International Center for Photography, or of Photography?" It's one of.
Internet of photography.
Cool. And that's in New York City.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. No,
Uh,
I'm just trying to.
and,
I want to.
uh,
But there might be some people who aren't.
yeah, and the hashtag is ICP concerned, and I think they're still accepting submissions. If you tag a picture from your pandemic days with that hashtag, they'll consider it. And the International Center of Photography was founded by Cornel Kappa, who's Robert Kappa's brother, and Cornel Kappa and Robert Kappa were founding members of Magnum, which was my first job out of college.
Wow. How did you end up with the first job out of college at Magnum?
If you can believe it, I answered an ad in the New York Times.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
back in the day when you used to just look at classifieds.
Incredible.
I'm really dating myself.
No. It's I think there's still classifieds out there. They just might not be Magnum might
And
not do it.
or in the physical paper, like you're not really looking at classifieds in a physical paper.
Right.
These are I'm starting to call them sentimental still lives, and it's again a little bit of trying to have a conversation with classical drawing. I'm shooting them on drawing paper. I'm letting the paper be really visible. And I broke this bowl in our kitchen. It really was broken. I really liked it. And it was just in a really low moment during the pandemic. And so I was trying to photograph my everyday when it hit a certain breaking point of an emotionalism. And this was one of those moments where I was like, this is bad. And so I took this picture, and then I felt like I made a successful photograph, and I felt better. I felt better after making something that I'm very hard on myself, and maybe that's why I'm always taking so many different paths. Um, I felt like it was a good photograph, and I really did feel better, and I felt like it was going to be okay. And again, like the documenting of my time really saved my everyday. Documenting in my whatever form I find myself in. This is really sentimental too. So I feel like even before my image got picked by the Atlantic for that poem, um, I feel real attachment and poetry towards objects and nature. And this is the tree in my parents' house, and I hadn't been able to see them for a bit because of the pandemic, and we were being really careful. And then we got to see them, and they planted this tree 15 years ago in their house, and it was tiny, and it's huge. It's like taller than their house, like taken over. And I just was looking at the tree with my mom, and my mom doesn't really do a lot outside right now, obviously, and she's really careful as she should be, and she's a brilliant woman, and I love her. And we were sitting outside on the porch, and like the light, the way the leaves were going through the light and casting this light on her wall, and that she was willing to sit there with me and appreciate it, and was like encouraging me. She's like, "You're right. That is magic. Look at that. Wow." And we just were having such a moment together. But and I just felt like I wanted to memorialize it for myself, that moment, this tree, all that I represented, all the times that like my kids tried to climb it, and my niece and nephew and my kids together dancing around the tree after my mom hung balloons for one of their birthday parties, just had like real sentimental value to me. So I make images that are very sentimental to me and hope that even without that backstory, that maybe people will like it and people will get some positive feeling from seeing it, and feel that they also have, even if it's small and in their backyard or looking up or out, it doesn't have to be a trip through Italy. It can be something right here. That's magic. Photography is magic.
Hmm. I want to skip ahead a little bit because I want to talk about this image, and if we have time, we'll go back to talk about some others. But I
Well, cool.
really want to know what's happening here.
So this is again this exploration between photography and other mediums. This is I often try and get a different angle of the same thing. So I'm shooting this tree, I'm lying down, I'm looking up, and it's also this nostalgic thing about being a kid and looking up at tree leaves, looking up at the sky and making wishes and hopes for your future. I just have such distinct memories of doing that myself. But this is a more recent photograph, and it's printed on Japanese washi paper. And it is, you can really see the paper. So I love that it's a tree. I love that the paper itself is made from the tree. And then what I basically have done is I've sewn the edges by hand onto Belgian linen. And it's small. It's like 8.5 by 11. And it's so tactile. And I know that everybody wants to print huge, and I do too, and I do. But it's like just this small work that you need to commune with. And I made it by hand. I made every part of it by hand. And the frame is going to be a wood as well. And I just really like the conversation of all the media, the different mixed media together, and how it's coming together in this image.
Wow, that's so beautiful. How did you end up printing on it?
This is actually not that recent of a print. So the idea of sewing it up and framing it and is new, and seeing it without glass is new, but that actually was printed at the International Center of Photography with Brian Whitney.
Oh wow. So were you doing something there, or how did you end up
Yeah,
printing it at ICP?
uh, I've taken a lot of um, classes at ICP, and it's also an amazing space to print. I've taken every class possible with a teacher named Ben Guest. I think aside from Brian, that one class with Brian Whitney, every class I've ever taken was with either Ben or when I took a really deep dive into post production Photoshop. So I took a lot of Photoshop classes through the ICP. Hi, Rick. um, Through the ICP, and I really learned everything I could about Photoshop, because so much of my practice relies heavily on post production, and printing too. Ben taught. I was a darkroom printer for many years when I shot film. I used to wear my headphones and rock out in my tiny room, and it's the best time ever. Before I was married, had kids, I just wanted to go to the dark room all day long. But those, I don't have any interest in shooting film. I know it's really in vogue to shoot film, and that's cool too. I don't miss it, and I don't have any interest in going back to it. But I think I'm pushing against that by bringing in all these other elements, because there is something about the filmic process that's so tactile on its own. So maybe I'm missing it. I just don't want to go back. I want to go forward.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. I mean, the dark room and dance parties in the dark room, there's nothing like it. But going
Nobody
forward is
is dark. Sorry.
no, it's just like good time, like the memories and the stop bath on the fingers. There's something so there's something so heartwarming about it.
Yeah.
Um, but how to move forward with that and not to go back. It's a
Yeah.
very intriguing thing.
Yeah, exactly. I do really appreciate the photographers, and I don't want to discount that. Like I really
No. But I mean, as a
that are,
personal practice.
yeah, that are making it with film. I think that's really cool too. The other thing is, like, I really appreciate photography and photographers. I could look at pictures all day long, and I love what people are doing, and I miss being able to see it in person, but I find solace in being able to meet and see so much great work I get to see during the pandemic, and having the time for it. I'm grateful for that time and this community.
Hmm. We have about 5 6 minutes left. We could skip through a couple. We could go through a couple more of these images really quickly. This is like lightning round.
Yay. So this is a new picture, and it relies heavily on taking something away. So it's on a tripod, pretty long exposure, the moonlight, but there's no moon. Um, it's a sailboat, and it's very, to me, it's like Sugimoto, Rothko. everything has been distilled to its most basic elements, except for the lone human contact with the sailboat. And I really like this idea of the most basic things that we need to survive, but we take for granted. Water, sky, the elements, and how important it is for us not just to exist, but to find peace of mind. This is a picture of my daughter, and it's just a really low perspective, and she fell asleep, and these crazy clouds were coming up the mountain, and I just want to squeeze her up. I just love her so. Um, I was doing this series for a while called the Backyard series, where like strange shit would be happening in the backyard, and I would just like gather it up. Except now, what I want to do, so that's a deconstructed wasp yellow jacket nest, and I took apart the outer layer, which basically is one of the most delicate papers you've ever felt. But I want to make a unique piece of art with it, and not just photograph it. So I haven't done it yet, because I was talking to my kid's art school teacher, who gave me such amazing advice. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. I don't think you're on here, but thank you. And I want to make a new piece with the actual paper. It's just unbelievable that the Yellow Jackets basically make this painting by macerating wood with their saliva. And that's how they make the outer shell of this unbelievably intricate home. And the architecture, natural architecture, fascinates me. This is an example of painting and incorporating photography into painting. It's an acrylic painting, and I have added the photograph and then painted these like geometric shapes on top of it. Again, breaking things down to its most basic elements, but then trying to create unique objects that people can appreciate and live with. And it's not a big piece either, so it's something that you really have to come close to. Have a moment. I don't know if you heard that. My dog is like growling. She likes that picture, or she hates it. I don't know. And these are some newer Tondo sky pictures that I'm starting to do that I want to print out for this encaustic treatment that I plan to learn next week. So I'm hoping to print these rounds, and then you pour either hot or cold wax, depending how much ventilation you have. So I feel like the wax process, it is like a little bit of a missing the dark room and the smell of the chemicals. So I just want to like make something equally disturbing and noxious and needing just as much fumigation and or ventilation to exist. But so I'm hoping to have, and then there's a few pieces that I'm trying to print on glass and plexi. So I'm really I just want to play with materials, and I've had this lovely time to be able to do it. So I want to keep going in that realm and see where I'm at, but still take straightforward photographs too, and still look at a million photographs.
So we have a minute and a half, a little bit less left. So
I'm gonna drink a lot of.
Hmm?
I'm gonna need to drink a lot of water after this. I'm so like parched from talking.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing all of your work and all of your amazingness. I want to say, so why don't you say your name for everybody, and then where they can find you, and then I'm going to finish off.
My name's Dora Somosi, and that name is Hungarian, so fellow Hungarian, born in Hungary, Budapest. And you can follow my photography at Dora Somosi Photography. And I have a website that's my name. It's Dora Somosi. And yeah.
Thank you. So thank you, Dora. Thank you to everyone who watched, who was, and thank you for participating. Thank you for commenting. I'll be back here at 6 p.m. with Bob as part of this whole curation for show fields. My name's Aaron Jack, and I'm on my photography account. I also have my Aaron Jack line art, which every week I bring in art, different artists and different awesome people. So this whole week I'll be back Thursday with more amazing photographers, and Friday all day. So thank you so much, Dora, for being a part of it.
I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
to all of the people watching. Go follow both of us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.